Hey, this is Dr. Bill Garris. Let's talk a little bit about choosing your topic for research methods. There's 3 points I want to make. The first is that in Western science, we have had a tendency to take a very reductionistic approach to science, which is to say, instead of looking at the whole, we tend to look at the parts, and we tend to break things down to the smallest possible parts. A second point about conducting research is that it's very important for scientists to measure things. They would hold that anything that exists can be measured, and if it can't be measured, then it doesn't exist for all intents and purposes. So the first point is that Western science tends to reduce things and to look at very tiny parts rather than the whole. And the second part is that social scientists and scientists in general want to measure things. Anything that exists exists in some amount and can be measured. And if it doesn't or can't be measured, then they would say it doesn't exist. A third point about social science research is that they tend to look at variables. Now, variables are constructs or things that can vary. Variables vary. Let me look in here, and I've got some variables that are jotted down, and let's look at a couple of examples. Let's see. Exposure to books, is that something that can vary? Why, yes. Someone can be exposed to a lot of books or no books or kind of a middle amount of books. Let's see. Occupation, is that something that can vary? Yeah. It can vary in terms of years on the job. You can have no years, many years, and anything in between. You can have different types of occupation like teacher, farmer, doctor, architect. Here's another example of a variable. Income. This is absolutely something that can vary. You can have no income, you can have low income, you can have a middling amount of income, and you can have a lot of income. Here's another one. This says credit card debt. This is also a variable. Credit card debt is something that can vary. You can have no credit card debt, a small amount of credit card debt, or a lot of credit card debt. So scientists look at variables, and variables are constructs or things that can vary. Now, one final point before we wrap things up here. Oftentimes, social scientists will look at relationships between variables to see if a relationship exists. I just dropped a variable. That's not cool. So here's some examples. Here's marital satisfaction, and let's draw this one. Credit card. These are two variables. You may be happy in your relationship, you may not be happy in your relationship. What is the relationship between credit card debt and marital satisfaction? Is there a relationship between those two variables? Here's another one. Interesting. Exposure to books. These seem kind of random, but you can see how a relationship could exist between these two variables, especially if you were curious about these kinds of things. Is there a relationship between exposure to books and occupation? Yeah, reasonable enough. Last two that we'll draw kind of randomly. Okay. Number of sex partners and, what does that say? Corporal punishment. So, number of sex partners, you can have 0, 2, 3, 100. And then corporal punishment or spanking. Could there be a relationship between spanking received as a child and the number of sex partners that you have later in life? Not something I'd ever thought of before, but a very intriguing study could be carried out here. Wow, wouldn't that be interesting if you find out that if you were spanked weekly. So anyway, I hope this gives you some idea about how to proceed with narrowing the topics that you're working on for research methods. Thanks.